Welcome to another Wild Blessing episode. This is Teaching Tuesday. I'm so excited that you've joined me. We're going to have a great time tonight talking about being wildly prepared for the winter or for emergencies. And there's so much to discuss. There's so much harvest out there to be gathered up. So much joy to be bubbling up in your heart. And we're just wildly blessed. So I'm glad you're here.
That's the audience, the crowd just cheering. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah. My dog and my husband are here. Okay, so I always start my class with herbing around. And so what am I doing? I'm dealing with hickory nuts, and I'm going to show you how I garble around or herb around with them. So they have these really cool looking husks, and they break up into 4 pieces. This particular species does. And then you just put this part in the water, and if it sinks, it's a good nut, and if it floats, it's a bad nut. And then you take all of these husks and throw them in a bowl to use in the wintertime or in your fire, because hickory is an amazing slow. Oh, wow, look at this one. It's like a twin. How cool is that? Let's see if it floats. Yep, it's a good one. Wow, that's going to be a big one.
That sounds like something medieval. Like, if it floats, you're innocent. If you sink,
if you sink, you're innocent.
If you float, you're guilty.
Yeah.
And therefore, you're going to be executed. How do you come up with that floating test?
Okay, well, I just researched it. So nothing is original with me ever. I've just done a lot of research. And so what I have learned, though, from practical experience is that not all the ones that float are actually bad guys. And so I'm going to go ahead and open those as well, just because I just don't want to miss out on a good nut. Okay. So, oh, this one's not coming off. All right. So I'll just leave him in there. So I'm just going to go through. I'm not going to sit here and do all of this while you're watching me. I just wanted to show you. Hopefully you have hickory nuts near you. There's such an amazing tree. We have a whole shagbark hickory grove right here on our land. I've got lots of shopping centers where I can find hickories. Okay, so I'm going to read to you a poem that my friend Laura Wendt wrote about hickories. And I taught a whole hour-long class on this particular nut, and it's so fascinating, and there's so much to talk about. But that's not the topic of this class, but I will read to you her poem and possibly Lumini's. Okay, so Laura, this is yours, hon. Hickory dickory dock, how many nuts will you drop? High in protein, fat, and carbs, your calories help us go far. Your wood is strong, elastic, and tough, tasty for smoking, it lasts long enough. Your feather-shaped leaflets filter the sun and take on its hue before they are done. Your patient, slow growth teaches us to be steady, teaches us to receive your gifts when you're ready. And so here's what she's talking about. These are the, I'll bring it over, don't worry about it. These are the leaves. And as they turn into autumn colors, they turn golden, like the hue of the sun. So that's what she was referring to. And she told me about how her father used to gather hickory wood so that he could smoke their the ham hocks or whatever it is that they were smoking to preserve it. That's another way to preserve is with smoking. But the hickory lends an amazing flavor. And so I would save these husks because you can use those to start a fire or to keep a fire going, and they do last a long time. Also, the bark. I'm not sure where I put the bark. Here it is. The bark of a shagbark hickory tree is kind of stands out from the tree, and you can just peel it off, and you can make a tea out of this. There's a lot of medicinal properties to it. It's just the most amazing tree. Okay, and here's one from Lumini, just because I love this one too, so I'll share it. Old hickory, with wood that is dense and strong for fires that burn through the night, furniture and tools that last through the years, with sap and nuts for delicious food, milk and flour with a bit of labor, as well as medicinal bark and twigs, teaches us patience and endurance. So each plant, we always look for, well, what is this character of this plant? What is its reputation? Honestly, I think that the hickory is stability, steadiness, endurance. It's just an amazing tree. So, okay. So for our wild tea, Oh my goodness, I forgot to welcome new members. Welcome. If you're new, please comment below where you're listening from, and let me know if you've been foraging for a week or for 10 years or since you were born. So just let me know what your status is and how you found out about us, and just welcome. I'm so glad you've joined us. And if you want to comment or ask questions, please do. I've had so many wonderful wild adventures this week with Abigail and Ellie Grace, and also Karen Campbell and her daughter Khloe and her best friend Brooke. And so there's just been several things that you'll see about as you look at our slideshow of all the different adventures we had and the things we cooked up and the things we filled our baskets with. So thank you to all of you who filled your baskets and showed pictures of what you did. And if you look on our Wild Blessings with Holly Drake Facebook group, Karen just posted her garbled and on display of all of her wild edibles that we collected while we were foraging, and it is absolutely stunning. So anyway, Karen, you're our winner again this week. So I don't know if you want to come back and herb around with me, but you won. So I'm just really excited because we had such a good time. And please bring Brooke when you come. All right, so that's a little tiny bit on hickory. All right, back to, we always have a wild tea. And so Jason's going to come talk about what he did to help me prepare for the wild tea that we're doing. It's related to hickory. So can you come up here, hon?
Okay.
I've got it heating, so I'm going to go ahead and strain it while you talk about it.
Well, first of all, well, you can't go over there. You got to stay here with me.
Oh, well, you've got a loud voice.
No, let's get close.
Okay.
So we're talking about these wild hickory nuts, but first I got to tell you, boys who eat their dinner get treats. You know that. You know that kids who eat their dinner get to have treats.
I never even fed him.
And oh, he's fooled me. I thought he had finished his dinner and this was his treat.
No,
so,
he doesn't get a treat.
But let me talk about a treat for you.
Okay.
So these wild hickory nuts, and she handed me one earlier and said, "Oh, you got to taste this, and it's really tasty and good." And I'm like, "Okay." One different form of nuts. Oh, they're like pecans. So she broke one of them open, and
Here, we'll get one out.
well, that's okay. And then I tasted it, and I gotta admit, it has a very enjoyable taste, almost like a pecan with a slight maple flavor.
Yes.
It's not a sweet maple flavor, but it's like a maple flavor.
Some
So
people say it has the best taste of any other nut.
I can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
It seems probable, though, that it's very hard to harvest, or the meats inside are not as easy to process like you would pecans or something like that. So she gave me a bunch of the ones that had not floated, that were on the bottom.
The innocent ones.
The innocent ones that we knew would be usable, the best ones.
Okay.
I took them downstairs to my workshop, and although we started off with the idea of trying to crack them with this or crack them on a stone, which we've seen other people do, I put them into a vise. You know, guys have a workbench table, and on the workbench table is a big vise that you use to clamp things down. And of course I used that. I just crunched them until the shell broke, and then peeled them open.
Because this is a hard shell. You
Yeah.
can't eat this like that, or you'd break your teeth.
No.
So it has a double shell. It has this outer husk, and it has a really hard shell.
Yeah.
So people really don't like to take the time to get the nut meats out, but we have a way that we can enjoy this nut without having to take the nut meats out. So what did you do?
Well, I don't think I was not involved in the rest of the process, so you need to explain.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll explain.
Yeah, please do.
So he crushed them all up, and then I put them into this pan. And so you stay here so I can feed you some, okay? And first thing I did is I roasted them just for a little bit. Well, I did not leave the side of the pan. I just stayed next to it till it got a little bit toasty and you could smell the nut cooking. Then I added water to it. So I don't know, I would make it 3-to-1 ratio or whatever. And some people will actually simmer this, like a whole gallon of this, for overnight for 24 hours. And it makes a really dark and rich, amazing nut milk. And so, but I only did this for maybe an hour. So what I'm going to do now.
Well, before you go, I have to admit, even as I describe the taste, when you smell the aroma of this hickory nut milk, it doesn't have a milky consistency to it. So it's really a strong. Milk is a strange word to use.
Well, it's called a hickory milk.
But it does smell. It does have the smell of a slight maple flavor to it. So,
Okay, so we're going to try it. And I'm going to have, because I have no room to work here, just hold that so it doesn't fall down. I've got a strainer here in Jason's mug, and I'm just going to pour the nuts through the strainer.
that's good.
And some people like to have, I want some too. Some people like to actually put the nuts, not the shell, but the nuts floating in it, kind of as an extra treat. And then you can sweeten it with local honey, or do you want honey or do you want maple syrup?
No, let's just go with honey. The maple flavoring, I think, is noticeable enough.
Yeah, I can smell it. It smells so good.
And I would say, yeah, and I can also add, as you did.
Well, hold on. I forgot to get honey out. Let me go get it real quick. No, me and Jace, I'm not sure where it is. Oh, well, here, I've got some milkweed honey. You want that?
Well, that's okay. Never mind. I'll just go ahead and drink it without that in there, or just add a little bit of maple syrup to it.
Okay.
You can certainly flavor yours as well.
All right, well, here's some maple syrup.
But I can certainly imagine if you were to steep it longer, you will get a much thicker consistency to the tea. So
Okay, well, stay here because we're going to have a
Just a little,
wild
maybe half.
dessert. I'm just going
Just
to
a
give you a
half.
teaspoon.
thanks.
How's
There you
that?
go. That's good.
Okay, wait for me. I want to try it too.
Right.
So I've never actually tried this. I do love hickory nuts, and I have processed them in the past, and they are kind of a lot of work. But this is the first time I've tried the nut milk.
I think we should call it a nut tea.
A
It's
brew. It's a brew.
It's more of the consistency of a tea, certainly.
That
so.
is delicious. It's not warm enough.
No, but it's very soothing. I think it's a
Oh my
very soothing
gosh,
flavor.
that is so good.
A soothing flavor.
Yes, and
Okay,
it's super high
I'm going to sit down
nutrition.
to try and take care of some more of our technical questions
All
or
right.
details, but you go ahead and
Okay,
prepare
so
what
then
you're
I'll go ahead and tell you about what we're going to do for our wild cooking demonstration. And then I'll just hand it to you. Do you trust me or do you want me to just do it?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to move the hickory nuts out of the way. And I'll get the maple syrup out of the way. So what we're going to make is nachos with apples. And so I've been gathering apples from lots of trees that are just, they're just so full of apples all over the high country. Always get permission from the people that you are asking permission to forage on their land. And I have some wonderful relationships with so many different, quote, shopping centers. And I like to bring them, like I got a lot of these apples from Harold and Regine's house. So I've been bringing them chestnut butter and apple, what did I make? Apple crisp. And then I just gave them some apple butter. And I'm going to give her some apple sauce because I've taken a lot of her apples. But what I did with these is I just took it and put it, I'm sure you all have seen these little peelers or slicers or whatever, where you stick that in and it comes out in little discs. So I did that and I put them into lemon water so they'd be ready to go and they wouldn't turn brown. So then I have all these cool toppings. So the toppings I have are marshmallow, chocolate, I don't think I'd like that one, ginger snaps, peanuts, and caramel pieces. And then I have a special sauce that I made out of apples. So I'll show you that in just a minute. So is that about enough apples for you?
That's good.
You think? Okay. Let me get a little plate. I'll use this one. So I took the apples and I put them into my pot on the stove with some apple cider. And I just cooked it and cooked it and cooked it. And then I used an immersion blender to make it really smooth. And I didn't work at it as long as I should, but when Ann Randall was here, she showed me how she did it, and it turned out tasting exactly like caramel, although all it was apple. So it was amazing. So what I did, where did I put it? It's over here. I haven't done it completely to the point, but this is what it looks like here. So it's still a little bit bumpy. It's not as smooth and caramely, but it's still going to be really good. So I'm going to just put a big drop of that in the middle. And then, Jess, you want some peanuts?
Sure, just decorate it any way you'd like.
Okay, I'm going to put the peanuts and some marshmallows. Okay, and these are little caramel things. They're not good for you, but so what? And then do you want chocolate? I don't think you want chocolate. A little tiny bit of chocolate. And then I thought this was kind of fun. I took some ginger snaps and I just kind of ground them up. I'm going to sprinkle that all over. So, all right, you're going to have to come get this, Jace. This looks really good. I'm excited. All right. It's really probably not the best thing for you, but.
Okay. I need a spoon. I can't.
Oh, no, just pick it up like a chip.
You
yeah,
think
it's
so?
like a nacho.
Well, apples don't hold up
Like
like.
stick it in there. Like, well, did that taste good? The apple is. It's kind of like a. If I had done it longer, it would be. I will do it and show you pictures. This is more like an
apple butter.
Yeah, it's more like an apple butter, but the way she did it was amazing. So, well, anyway, that looks like it would be really tasty.
I think it is to me. Everything's dropping.
Okay, well, you can go sit down and eat it. All right. So we've been making apple turnovers, apple fritters, apple crisps, apple everything, because it's apple. It's not just apple month. There's 3 months to apple season. It's a whole season. And so get them while the getting's good, and they do last. It's not as highly seasonal as some of the nuts. So for example, the acorns, I honestly can't find them anymore. They kind of tend to drop before the leaves fall to the forest floor, and which is good because once the leaves fall, you can't see them anyway. So you need to get out and get it when the getting's good. So that's kind of, it's just the way it is to be a forager. You always have to be kind of on your toes. And you know you're a forager when you lay awake at night thinking, oh, I wonder if the autumn olive berries are still out there to get. So like the other day, I went over to get some hawthorns over at Jenny's house, and they were all gone. But I got a lot of them, and I've made all kinds of amazing things with it, which I'll show you later. Okay, so what are we doing next? Oh, I wanted to share some wild thoughts. The scripture for this past week was, do not fear, for I am with you. Whoops. And I had such a good time with Abigail and Ellie Grace. They decorated their own posters, which were just beautiful. And I've got them in our slideshow, so check those out. But this is just some autumn leaves, and they look like flowers. It's like fall flowers are the autumn leaves. And the changing of the leaves is so magical to me because these are the actual real color of the leaf. And there's something in the leaf that stops when God tells it to. It just stops the photosynthesis in the green. And then what was below the green comes out. And so all these colors just are vibrant and are so much fun. And it's so exciting to watch them fall down. So one of the things for your homework this week is that I'd like you to take a 15-second video of the leaves falling where you live. And so make sure you get out in the woods, especially on a windy day, and take your camera with you, your phone, and just videotape for 15 seconds the leaves floating down and doing their final dance to the forest floor. But talking about actually the verse and what it means is, do not fear, for I am with you. And so I got to thinking about I am and the times in scriptures when the words I am are discussed, and the A is capitalized in these times that I'm going to refer to. And one was when Moses was being told by God to rescue his people out of slavery in Egypt and to go to Pharaoh and say, let my people go. And he said, well, who am I going to say sent me? And he said, and God said, tell them I am who I am, and that I am sent you. In other words, it is the ultimate name for God alone, no one else, just God. And it's like the one who has no beginning and no end, the one who created and sustains all of life, the one who we worship is I am. He is the great I am. And then the next time we see this is in the New Testament when Jesus reveals himself to the woman at the well, who's not only a woman in a kind of misogynistic time period, but she's a Samaritan, which the Jews and Samaritans hated one another. And she's not only a woman and a Samaritan, but she is a kind of a broken woman. And Jesus goes out of his way to go to Samaria to meet her. And he knows her, and he starts revealing to her that he is the great I am, and that he is the Messiah, the one who'd been prophesied, like we were talking about last week. So that's just so exciting. So Jesus claimed to be God. He said, I am. And then there was another really clear verse about that in John 8, but I can't remember what it says. All right. So I hope you decorated your poster. And this is going to be kind of like an anchor to our souls during difficult times. And there's so much crap out there. So turn off the news. Don't listen. Don't let that be what sets your altitude. Let your attitude be set by how does God view these situations. And it's like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, our God can deliver us out of the fiery furnace. But if he does not, we're still not going to bow our knee to anyone but the real God. So they went right into the fiery furnace, and Jesus was with them. So the only thing that got burned was their bondages, their wristbands that were holding them together. Not one hair of their head was singed, and they didn't even smell like smoke. So we might have to go through difficult times, but if we remember whose we are and who we are with, the great I am, then that sets all of the atmosphere for peace and security and confidence. So those are my wild thoughts about that. And I had a few more things to share about that, which I'll share at the end. But let's talk about our topic for today, which is the wild garden. And I got to thinking, how can I share with you how to bring onto your land the plants that we've been talking about every week, ever since February, that you've just got to have. And honestly, it's going to take a lot more than what I can offer for you today. So I'm going to just share a few things, but we'll have to have a whole nother class on the wild garden, because I gave a class on this about 3 years ago, and I was looking at my notes and it was 4 pages long. So I'm not going to go over all 4 pages. I'm just going to give you a few good ideas that you can put into your pipe and smoke. All right. So one is to go out and collect the seeds of the wild edible plants that you love. So here is, see if it fell. Did it fall? No, it did not. Okay. So here is chicory, and I love chicory, so I want that on my land. But these seeds are not dark and ready yet. These are. So make sure you pick the seeds that are dried and ready to be germinated again, or to be dropped into the soil. So that here's a chicory, here's an amaranth, and I definitely want some of this, not in my main area, but I definitely want all of the perennials that I can get, but I want them on the perimeter of my land, and I'll explain why later. And then here's some seed pods. This is kind of exciting because this is an evening primrose, and you can see all of the stages. You can see the early tasty little flower buds. They're so good. The flowers, and then the early seed pods, and then the dried out seed pods. And sure enough, there's the seeds. And so this is serious nutrition. So you definitely want this, and you probably already have it on your land. But so you want to go and find the ones, write a list. You can pull out, or I don't have it with me, but my bucket list, which is on wildblessings.com. It's the pop down or pop up or whatever it's called. Print that out, and that's your bucket list. It's all of my favorite wild edibles. And then just look through and say, well, which ones do I really need to have on my land? And honestly, I have been so intentional to bring the seeds to my land and to bring the life to my land that I have pretty much everything I need right here. But I do like to go shopping other places as well. Okay, so that's the seeds. Planning locations, like look at your land. You might have just a small little area. You might even have, I remember going to visit Linda Runyon, and in her assisted living area, and on her windowsill, I forgot to put this in my slideshow, she was growing wild edible seedlings. So she had little tiny lamb's quarter growing on her windowsill. So she had all this light coming in, and she had these trays of dirt with wild seeds growing, because she was so used to eating just weeds that was her favorite thing to eat. So she had these tender little microgreens to eat all winter long. And not only that, but in the center courtyard of the assisted living area, retirement center, I guess they called it, she had created a wild edible plant walk so that she could educate the other residents that lived there. And that blew my mind. So I have pictures of that, and I totally forgot to put that in, but I'll share that when I talk about the wild garden. And then she's written an entire book on how to create a wild edible plant walk. So I forgot to bring that down from my library upstairs, but that's an amazing book. So that'll be part of our wild garden talk as well. So just thinking about, well, what do you have? She was indoors and she had the outside. Of course, they gave her permission to do that in the courtyard, but what do you have? Maybe you only have a patio and you can just do it in planters. That's fine. Maybe you have like lots of acres. That's exciting, and you need to be kind of intentional about where you put things. You certainly don't want to have edible dreadables like Japanese knotweed or like kudzu, or what are some other ones that take over the planet that are good, but you don't want them on your land. So those are like locations destinations you can go visit, but you don't want to bring any of that back to your land. And then you can transplant. So that's a really healthy, great way to bring the life to your land, is transplanting. So just recently, I've given a couple of beautyberry bushes that had volunteered to some friends that wanted them. And so they just took them home. I said, you promised me that you put it in the ground right away where you'd like it to be. And each plant has its own nuances. It has its own habits about where it likes to grow and how it likes to be tended. And so all of that is usually part of my befriending a plant class. So you can listen to those things. So spreading seeds, spreading them now is important, and in the next month, because that's what nature is doing. So honestly, I can't have enough burdock on my land. So I don't want to just collect the seeds, which I do, but I want to put them out where I would like them to take over now in the winter, because you want to have two things happen. If you wait till the spring, these two things do not happen. And the two things are scarification and stratification. And the stratification is the hot and the cold, and the hot and the cold, and the hot and the cold of winter, where things freeze and crack and thaw, and the snow comes and then it melts, and all of that can be. We can do that in our freezers, like taking it out of the freezer, and we can pretend, but why not just put it right out on the land where you'd like it to be so it can go through that process? And the scarification, you can also do that with like a nail clipper or with sandpaper or something, where you kind of take the seed coat and you rough it up a little bit, but why bother if you could just put it out now, because nature's doing it now. And so that's kind of like going with the flow. And that's, I like doing things as naturally and as easy as possible. So I think that's the best way. Another thing you can do is called branching out. And hold on, let me get them for you. So I almost went to the autumn oliveberry patch just now, or right before class, but I was going to run out of time, and I felt I better feed Jason. But this is a beautyberry. Isn't it lovely? So much to say about this plant. But anyway, take a branch like this. If you don't have beautyberry, borrow or ask a friend who does have it, or I've got lots of this, and just take a whole branch of it and put it where you'd like it to be on your land. And it's not necessarily, the birds will come and they will eat it and then they'll poop it out somewhere. So it might not necessarily grow right there, but it'll grow and the life will spread. And it's kind of exciting because you're planting seeds in a way without actually planting seeds. This is a stone cherry from my good friend Diane's farm. And I kind of would like to have some stone cherries on my land. So I just got these, off of these little twigs off of her tree. So I could put them kind of like down by the road, I think is where I'd like these to be. But they're so beautiful and they are tasty, and you can make jams and stuff out of them. Do that with autumn olive, do that with crab apples. And let's see, I grabbed a whole, let's see if I can find it. Here it is. I grabbed this whole stick of crab apples to bring home and show you. Isn't it beautiful? I love this plant. It makes the best jelly. It's so incredible. It makes the most gorgeous color, oh man. And it's so high in pectin. So you really can't have enough crab apples. So what I've done is I've literally planted those. I've literally taken those, probably about 5 of them in different places around my acre and around the mountain on areas that people don't live, and just planted a few of those in the ground because I really want those to take off. I've also planted nuts. I kind of bury them, kind of like squirrels do. I haven't fed my dog. I feel so bad. He can wait. I guess he can wait. I'm sorry, Max. He's looking at an empty bowl. Okay, so take the nut and actually squirrel it down into the soil, and then mark it so you can guess or know where you've got this coming. Elderberries, you want to have elderberry on your land. You cannot live without elderberry. If you can access it, the best way to do that is in February, and you can literally just take a stick or a branch of the elderberry in February when it's just bare and naked and has just the little tiny, you can see where the leaves are going to come out. Stick that in the soil and stand back, and believe me, it grows. So I've planted about 20 of those that way all over the mountain down the hill from where I live. So, and they grew, which is incredible. So there's lots of fun ways to bring the life to your land without having to go buy an elderberry bush or spend a lot of money or take a lot of time. Okay. Oh, and then this one is exciting. I'm really getting excited about mushrooms. Man, Rachel, I wish you could come teach a class on them. But one of my absolute favorites is puffballs. And puffballs are so yummy. And one time I found a puffball that was literally larger than a grapefruit. And Jason, I ate off of that thing for like a week, and it was delicious. But you want to get them when they're really hard and white. And you always want to cut them in half, because a deadly amanita has a look-alike in its early stage, where if you were to cut, it looks similar to this in its early stage. If you cut it in half, you would see the form of the outline of a deadly amanita on the inside. So these are puffballs, and this is not a deadly amanita. But what I want to do with this, and I didn't eat them, I'm letting them kind of get a little bit pitiful looking, but I want their spores to go in my woods, because I found these far away in somebody else's woods. And so I just picked them, brought them home, and I didn't eat them. I brought them home so I could take these and put them where I want them to just be fruitful and multiply. So you can do that. I don't know if you've ever tried shiitake logs, where you inoculate the logs with the spores, but I would love to do that. I've never done that because I don't have a stream to roll them in, and they kind of need that. But there's lots of ways that you can even bring mushrooms to your land. And if anybody has chicken in the woods mushrooms growing near you, please let me know, because I'm really hankering to have some chicken in the woods mushrooms. Jason even likes it. Okay, so that's, last one. I want you to mark trees that are edible and drinkable, and their sap is drinkable. And so the ones I'm referring to are maple trees, sugar maples, not just any maple. There's many, many varieties of maples, but I'm talking about the sugar maple. And I'll show you the difference. Well, we'll talk about the difference in just a minute. But okay, so the maple and the birch has really good sap, and basswood has amazing sap, and so does the hickory. So the shagbark hickory you also can drink that sap that's going up the inner cambium. All right, so let's look at these different leaves. The reason why I'm telling you need a sugar maple is because if you get a red maple, this is a red maple, and you can look at its, this is the Canadian leaf, okay? So see its different lobes, and it has a V in the sinuses. So these are called the sinuses, where they dip down, kind of like our sinuses, but it's called the sinus. Well, these sinuses are very V-shaped. So here's another regular red maple. And I only have one sugar maple here. There's another red maple. See how it has that V in there? And there's another red maple. And here is a sugar maple. And you can look in this sinus here, and it has a beautiful little U. I hope you can see that. But I'll post pictures. Oh, you know what? I did a whole class on this, so I'll just give a link to that class. You want to show it, Jace?
Yes. Now, let me ask you if you can tell our viewers which type of maple leaf is on the Canada flag.
I just told you.
Which one did you say?
Yeah, it's the red maple.
It is the red maple.
Yes.
And so what's the difference in the red maple and this one?
The red maple has a V in the sinuses, and the sugar maple has a U. And that's easy to remember because sugar is spelled S-U-G-A-R. And so the reason why that's important is because you have to boil the sap down to make maple syrup. And it's 40-1 to boil this down to syrup, and it's 15-1 to boil this down to syrup. So it would take 15 gallons of sap to get 1 gallon of maple syrup. With a sugar maple, it would take 40 gallons of sap to boil down to get 1 gallon of syrup. And it's not only just a lot of time, but it's a lot of fuel to heat that down, whether you're doing it on the stove, which is really not very sustainable, or whether you're doing it with logs. I mean, that's using up a lot of your wood that probably needs other uses, although we all love syrup. Okay, so that's important. So you want to look for these guys now, because once they've dropped their leaves, then you're not going to know which one is your sugar maple to tap in February. And that January, end of January, February, beginning of March is when it's tapping season or sugaring season. When the temperatures go above 40 during the day and they go down below freezing at night, that's when the sap just really flows, and you can fill a 5-gallon bucket in no time with the water. And the water is just a little sweet, like a tad sweet, but when you boil it down, that's when it gets that thick syrup that we all love so much on pancakes and stuff. So let's see. So checking out now, shagbark hickory trees. They're a no-brainer because they just look so shaggy all the time. And so you'll always know that you can tap that tree. And you can tap the birch tree, and you can make birch beer out of it. And you can make lots of things with birch syrup. And so that's another amazing thing. And basswood is probably my new favorite tree. I don't have one on my land, but I have some access nearby to me. And you can even make chocolate out of that tree. I'm serious. It's just amazing. And bees love it. Okay, so that's my simple little, it's not a deep dive. It's just a simple thing. And now we're going to look at our slideshow. Yes, Jace?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah. No, now we're going to look at our slideshow. And you will see the different adventures that I've been on this week with others. And sometimes things are just by me and Max. You'll see what I've been cooking with, some of the different things that I've created. I've been doing a lot of fermenting, and this is part of preparation. So I'm just going to share this really quick. Okay, so fermenting onions. I've got some jalapeno in here. There's really nothing wild in this, although I could be fermenting ramps in the spring. I did not ferment ramps in the spring, but or wild onion, but this is just regular red onions that I decided to ferment. And so when you ferment things, it lasts and preserves them. And it's what people did before refrigeration. This is dandelion and cabbage for a really, really delicious sauerkraut. I also did some, I made a medicine. Oh no, I did a lot of vinegars. So this is a hawthorn vinegar. And I just took the hawthorn berries and I smashed them up with a hammer in a baggie, and then I just poured over water, and I added to that a couple of tablespoons of sugar, and that is becoming all bubbly. It's alive. And so we've got living cultures in here, the really good bacteria that our gut needs. So this is really good, not just for heart health, which is what hawthorn is famous for, but it's really awesome for probiotics, prebiotics, etc. Then I did the same thing this week on the 16th of October. Look at how beautiful that is. And it's also got bubbles all over it. This is going to be a vinegar for autumn olive berry. So not only do I have all of that good bacteria that we want and we need, but I also have the flavor of those different fruits. And then I made a medicine with, okay, I got to watch my time, a hawthorn elixir. And I took local honey and brandy, and I smashed the hawthorns, and then I added half brandy and half local honey, and then I've been shaking every day. And one of the things I love to do when I'm shaking my medicines is just to thank God and remember the gifts that hawthorn has to offer, or whatever it is I'm making. And so that's a great way. And then making things with sugars. I've made a lot of jams. I took a lot of fruits, threw them all together, and made a slurry for fruit leather. And I canned that and jarred that so I could just make fruit leather throughout the year. So sugar, salt, pickling, fermenting. We'll do a salting next week. And what else? Smoking. There's lots of different ways that people used to preserve their food and their abundance and their harvest all winter. And those are just some of the ways that I'm showing you that I've been doing lately. So let's go watch my slideshow, and then we'll end up with some wild thoughts. Okay. I hope you enjoyed foraging virtually with me. Okay, I wanted to share with you that, like, I was spending time with the Lord today, and I've been trying to get up for the sunrise. I used to do that every morning, and I've kind of missed out on it. But there's something really special physiologically from watching the sunrise and watching the sunset, which we'll talk about later, but not now. It's just important, and it's so reviving spiritually as well. There's a scripture that the Lord opened my eyes to in Psalm 46:5, which was in our slideshow, that said, God, see, how's it go? Psalm 46:5. Oh gosh, I can't even remember. God will meet her when the day dawns, or the Lord her God is in her midst. She will not be moved. The Lord will meet her when the morning dawns. And so when I read that verse, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I started getting up to watch the sunrise, and I want to get back into that. So if anyone wants to join me on that, post a picture of your sunrise. I'd love to see it over the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, or over New York City, wherever you are. The sun always rises. Great is his faithfulness. But what I was thinking about is, remember our verse on being still and knowing that he is God. So there's something that goes deeper than just being still and just sitting quietly and breathing deeply and soaking in God's creation from the outside in. There's something more, a deeper level of faith, and it's called settling your soul, calming and quieting your soul. And there's a scripture that I posted on the slideshow that said, my soul is like a weaned child within me. A weaned child against his mother's breast. My soul is like a weaned child within me. And so, in other words, when a child is totally weaned, it's not trying to nurse. It's not frantically trying to pull off his mother's blouse. He's just relaxed against his mother's chest, knowing that she will take care of him or her. And so, I like to picture that. I like to picture, especially when things are nerve-wracking and I feel out of whack. I always feel out of whack trying to teach because it's not really comfortable to talk to a camera. But I find that when I calm and quiet my soul, and I remember that God is with me and he'll never leave me or forsake me, and I just purposely settle my soul. Settling your soul kind of like a mother bird over her nest, or like ground stirred up, resettling to the earth, or like forest, like the autumn leaves falling to the ground, or like ground stirred up in the ocean. So that's what I opened up my streams in the desert, and I was thinking those thoughts, and this is what I read. There's a part of the sea known as the cushion of the sea. It lies beneath the surface that is agitated by storms and churned by the wind. It is so deep that it is a part of the sea that is never stirred. When the ocean floor is in these deep places is dredged of the remains of plant or animal life, it reveals evidence of having remained completely undisturbed for hundreds, if not thousands of years. The peace of God is an eternal calm like the cushion of the sea. It lies so deep within the human heart that no external difficulty or disturbance can reach it. And anyone who enters the presence of God becomes a partaker of that undisturbed and undisturbable calm. And I thought that was amazing. So I want to go back to, this is the last thing, and I'm going to give you this handout because I made this for a talk I gave a while back at Perkinsville Church. And the comment is, or the title is, Jesus is everything for everybody. And I actually got this off of YouTube, so I'll give you the link to that too. It was somebody, I can't remember who, but some really amazing speaker was speaking quite quickly, saying these things. Jesus is everything for everybody. And this is who the I am is. So fear not, for I am with you. Remember who he is. And this is part of magnifying God. So to the artist, he is the creator. And to the astronomer, he is the bright morning star. To the author, he is the word of life. To the baker, he is the bread of life coming down from heaven. To the biologist, he is the life. To the builder, he is the sure foundation. To the carpenter, he's the door. To the diplomat, he's the Prince of Peace. To the doctor, he's the great physician. And to the electrician, he's the light of the world. To the farmer, he is the kernel of wheat that fell to the ground and died. And to the geologist, he is the rock of ages. To the historian, he is the ancient of days. To the horticulturist, he is the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley. To the lawyer, he is the advocate with the Father. To the king, he is the King of kings and Lord of lords. And to the mortician, he is the resurrection from the dead. To the optometrist, he is the one who made the blind man see. To the psychologist, he's the wonderful counselor. To the philosopher, he is the truth. And to the traveler, he is the way. To the aromatherapist, he is the anointed one. So I'll show you that I'll give you this handout, and I will also give you the link to that because it was really powerfully done. So just remembering who God is, and if you don't know him, Jesus is his name. He is the great I am. And I want to invite you to know him because he is love. So I hope this was a blessing to you. I would love sharing my passions. I love bragging on the Creator. I love talking about his handiwork. I love eating it. I love sharing with you all. So join me again next week. Include, if you want to have your friends join, just send them an invite, and I'd be happy to include them. If you would love to support me on Patreon, I am so grateful to those of you who do, and please do that. That would be such a blessing. And like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And so I think that's about it. Did I say everything? Okay. All right. So I hope that you have a peaceful week, calming and quieting your soul, settling your soul, and make sure you videotape some of those autumn leaves coming to the forest floor and posting that for a potential win for next week.
And a sunrise. We want to see it.
Yeah, if you do a sunrise, and also if you post a foraging basket that you gathered, let me just warn you a little bit that the harvest is going to start weaning, but there's lots of things out there. For example, dandelions are back, so a lot of things we can do. Next week, we'll be talking about making some medicines with these things. And I also have my friend Jody coming back to give some very practical ways to stay warm if we lost power. So you want to come back for that. God bless you.